I'm Anne-Marie Covert, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a social worker and psychotherapist who loves Jesus, and I believe that God wants to bring emotional health and well-being to the church. So I'm on a mission to do that, and I am so pleased to be part of your soul care journey, and I hope that you find today's workshop helpful. God has given me a message, and He's called it Rhythms of Rest. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to find our rhythms of rest. What is a rhythm of rest, and why are we lacking it? I actually believe that God inherently designed rhythm all over the world. If we go back to Genesis, we see rhythm in the very beginning of creation, when God established a cycle of day and night. Already there was rhythm. There was day and there was night, and He said it was good. And then there were seasons. Our seasons have rhythm. The land has rhythm. It knows not to produce crops in the middle of winter. That's when it's supposed to lay low and get ready for growth. Even human beings, what is the first sound that we hear? Well, I believe it's the sound of our mother's heartbeat, the rhythmic pulsating of her heart. And when babies are upset after they're born, when they get fussy, what calms them down? Gentle rocking, bouncing, or just being placed on the chest of a loved one where they hear that familiar rhythmic sound. Have you ever seen someone who was upset, maybe a young child, and they're rocking or pacing or bouncing? They're trying to find rhythm. It unconsciously calms them down. In our bodies, there are a lot of biological processes that have rhythm. Our circadian rhythm is a perfect example. We sleep better when we see sunlight in the morning and we allow our body to adjust to darkness at nighttime. This impacts our melatonin and other hormones associated with sleep. Another rhythm that God has put in our body, and if you heard me speak before, you know what I'm about to bring up probably. I'm going to bring out a slinky, because another rhythm that God has put in our body is our central nervous system. Specifically, our autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for the sympathetic and parasympathetic responses. If you've heard of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, that's your sympathetic nervous system. It's going into high gear because something is wrong. There's a threat. But usually, when we're at rest, we're supposed to be in a parasympathetic response. A parachute is how I remember that. And if this slinky is our nervous system, what that would look like is beautiful, rhythmic motion. Just a gentle up and down. Go through our day with our heartbeat at a steady level. Our breathing is paced and healthy. This allows all our digestive functions to work well. When there's no stress, when there's no threat, we're just tickety-boo, bumping along rhythmically through life. However, when a threat or stressful situation happens, let's say I'm walking through the woods and from the corner of my eye I see a bear. We get thrown out of rhythm, but it's supposed to protect us. So temporarily, our body will have a surge of adrenaline and cortisol. Our brain will activate our sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze, so that we are energized. Our slinky will go a little bit haywire, or a lot haywire as the case may be, and about 30 physiological functions will happen. Our heart rate will speed up. Our breathing will be faster. The purpose of this is so that blood is redirected from, my digestive system, because I don't need to digest my lunch right now. I need to run from the bear. And blood will be redirected to our extremities so that we are strengthened for the battle. And our brain is smart. It will engage us for battle in the best way possible. If we need to run from the bear, the flight response will happen. If we need to fight the bear, the fight response will happen. And if our brain says, Emery's not very good at running, and I don't think she has a chance if she fights back, our body will freeze, will release a sedative. It looks like the animal playing dead in the wild. It's a last chance resort, last ditch effort to try and protect us. And this nervous system is beautiful. God, I believe, somehow in His knowledge knew that we would need it in a broken world. It protects us in the case of threat. However, most of our threats today are not bears in the woods, and they're not temporary. So ideally, the slinky that is normally tickety-boo, that goes into either fight or flight or freeze in the case of the bear, after the bear is gone and we've survived, the body will re-regulate itself. It'll get rid of that extra adrenaline and cortisol. We see this with animals in the wild. A deer who escapes a hunter will shiver. It'll get rid of all of that extra stress energy so that the message is sent to the brain, I must be safe. And the slinky, the nervous system, goes back to its natural rhythms. But in our society, today's threats aren't the bears. In today's society, our threats are more nuanced. They are more ambiguous quite often. So for example, writing stressful emails at work. I remember one time trying to write an email. I was a manager at the time, and so staff would like to try and find me and ask questions and lots of wonderful things. But I remember one specific day I counted how many times I got interrupted when trying to write this one email, and it was 12 times. 12 times. One email that should have taken 5 minutes took me probably an hour with all the interruptions. And as much as I loved my team, I loved the staff there, those frequent interruptions were poking at my slinky. They were activating me. In today's society, we are so accessible. That alone triggers the fight or flight. It gets our slinky out of whack. It makes us lose our rhythm. And what I have noticed in my work with lots of different people across all different walks of life is that we are living in what I call a push-collapse dynamic. So we go, 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 go. The slinky is on fire. We are running. We are racing. We got extracurricular activities. We've got meetings. We've got serving. We've got ministry. We've got church stuff. We've got home stuff. We've got school stuff. We've got life stuff. Never mind crises that can happen. And oh boy, there's bad news on social media. And oh my goodness, what's going to happen with the election? There's a lot of stuff happening. There's a push, push, push. And then we collapse. We push, 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 and we collapse on vacation. We push, 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 push. We collapse on the weekend. We push, 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 push. We collapse when we finally retire. Have you ever gotten sick on vacation? That is why. This push and all this energy and all those 30 physiological processes that are essentially like a bear is chasing you because life is so chaotic and busy, are impacting you physically, and until you stop, your body doesn't have time to recalibrate. It can lead to an immune response, an emotional flu, lots of other problems. And we weren't designed for that. Society has become that, but I truly believe the heart of God is to bring us back to rhythm. There's a scripture that I found that I really like. I don't usually read the Message translation, but this one, it just had the scripture it really catches what I'm trying to say here. So in Matthew 12, verse 28 to 30, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of my grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. And that, my friends, is the heart of the Father. Yes, it's okay to be busy. Yes, it's okay to serve. But just like Mary, who chose the better thing to sit at the feet of Jesus, than Martha, who was caught up and anxious about many things, Jesus is inviting us to a slower pace, to rhythms of rest. So instead of push, push, push for 3 months until you finally get vacation, if you have vacation, I hope you do, instead of that push collapse, the invitation is to build in more consistent rhythmic pockets of rest. If you struggle with rest, this is something I see a lot. Let's say you finally do get a day off and you're excited, oh, I get to rest. But then when you stop and you try to be still, or you try to do something that's not productive, because that's what we're supposed to do when we rest. We're not supposed to be productive. You might notice a shame voice shows up. It often sounds like should. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Oh, I'm wasting my day. And then anxiety and stress can kick in. And you think, this is unfair. What's happening? I just want to rest. Why can't I enjoy it? There's a reason why you can't enjoy it. Your body is still under threat. It actually perceives, Emery stopped running from the bear. Is she safe? Well, yes, you are safe, but we have to show your brain and your body that that is the case. We have to persuade your nervous system that it's okay to be calm. And that takes time and practice, and it takes some skills, which I'm going to give you some. But a way to mitigate that shame in the first place is by building in those regular patterns of rest. But before I go into skills and ways to shift this dynamic, I just want to highlight some signs, some possible signs and symptoms that you might be living in this urgent push and collapse dynamic, that maybe your nervous system and your soul is out of rhythm. Because when our nervous system is out of rhythm, it does affect our soul. We don't process emotions properly when we're in fight or flight. Our body perceives that something isn't safe. So when I'm running from a bear, I'm not processing my fear or my sadness or my worry or my confusion. I'm just trying to survive. And when we're busy through life, it's the same dynamic. Again, even if it's not a bear, even if it's just stress at work, stress with your family, or if you're recovering from trauma of the past, all of those are perceived as threats, and our soul goes on hold. So the signs that you're out of rhythm are physical, but they're also psychological and emotional. So some physical signs that you've lost your rhythm include things like shallow, rapid breathing, digestion and gastrointestinal issues. Because remember, your nervous system is prioritizing running from the bear. It's not prioritizing digesting your lunch. Tension in your muscles because you're engaged for battle. A clenched jaw, teeth grinding. That is the fight response, clenching the teeth. Fatigued, agitated, restlessness, sleep disturbances, consistently getting sick on vacation like I talked about, poor immune function, low libido. Even our fertility can be connected to the fight or flight response. We are more fertile when we're at a state of rest because that's when it's safe to have a baby. All our processes, our reproductive, everything is affected by stress. High blood pressure, rapid heart rate and palpitations, eye twitches, and panic attacks. Now, I don't want anyone self-diagnosing. This is for awareness purposes. But here are some emotional signs that you might be out of rhythm. Irritability. Oh, so many Christians are hard on themselves. I'm irritable. What's wrong with me? Where's my fruit of the Spirit? We are irritable when we're stressed for too long. It's a sign. It's a little white flag calling out for help and attention. Being short-tempered. Cynicism. I remember one time a boss pointed out that I was more cynical than I normally would be. I'm not a cynical person. It's not in my nature. But suddenly I was being cynical at work. The truth was I actually was processing some grief and I hadn't allowed space for it. I was burnt out. It happens. Losing interest in things you once enjoyed. Apathy. Low motivation. We give people a hard time maybe sometimes when they struggle with goals or having motivation. It's usually a sign of stress or trauma. Low motivation can be a symptom of depression, an emotional issue, often as a result from that pain, from that dysregulation, right? Because those things are there to protect us. Anxiety, worry, panic. We're trying to get away from the bear. It's trying to help us survive. Depression, dissociation, which shows up in different ways but can look like staring off into space, feeling disconnected from yourself or others, seeking prolonged isolation, and substance use or addictions. People are just looking for ways to cope. And then some cognitive signs that you might be out of rhythm. Ruminating thoughts. Rumination is basically unhealthy meditation. It's a hamster wheel of negative thoughts. Rigid or all or nothing thinking. Things are very black and white. Some catastrophizing or stubborn thoughts, we often call them. Brain fog. People say, I'm just struggling. I can't think straight. That is a body that's in fight or flight. The brain is prioritizing other functions. It's prioritizing the survival brain, the amygdala. The hijack is happening in the brain, so you can't think clearly. Memory lapses. Same thing. We don't have a very good memory bank. That's why a lot of people with trauma don't remember everything that happened in some ways, because the memory literally shuts down when we're going through stressful things. Constant worry. It's protective. Hypervigilance. Thinking through every possible situation. Nightmares and night terrors. Now again, please don't self-diagnose. Those are for awareness purposes, to do a little self-check-in. Am I out of rhythm? Am I out of sync? Some other signs and some other reasons why we can be out of sync. Technological light. Our ancestors did not have access to all these blue screens like phones and tablets and PCs that we do. And so their body, their circadian rhythm, naturally got more tired to get them ready to release the hormones needed for sleep. When we see daylight in the morning, our body goes through its cycle to calm us down throughout the day, and we'll start with alertness and end with rest. But what happens when you see light at 8 p.m. at night, looking at a screen for hours on end? And if you didn't know this, that light from those screens is like a pulsating. Our brain interprets it as consistent, but it's a pulsating light. What do you think that does to our circadian rhythm? Well, it makes it alert. And people wonder why they don't sleep well. That is a hindrance to our rhythm. Not all of it's bad. Moderation. We got to find our balance. Being too accessible can be a hindrance to our rhythm. Like I described with my email situation, we are more accessible than we've ever been in human history. People can reach us day or night by text. You used to have to walk over to your neighbor's house to reach them. That's just not the case anymore. People can just reach out, and sometimes with really nasty news. And that triggers fight or flight. Our calendars look like Tetris. Now, if you're an elder millennial like me, you remember the Tetris game. It was fun. You got all these little boxes trying to fit them in this space, and the better you did, you'd win the game. Our calendars are not supposed to look like that. We're actually only supposed to be scheduled for about 60% of our workday, and yet we probably schedule 100%, maybe 150% in some cases. We need time to just think, to process, to be. Kids go through this too. Kids' calendars are not meant to look like Tetris, and we have a lot of kids with stress and anxiety, and in part, largely, due to the fact that they're just too busy. In fact, we found that a child who grows up rushed will develop an anxiety disorder. That is fight or flight, the rush, the urgency, the adrenaline, even if it's not for bad reasons. Even good things can cause anxiety and stress. Another hindrance is our normalizing culture. We have a culture that normalizes busyness. It's almost like a status symbol. I remember we used to at work sort of brag about how many meetings we had in a day. I don't know what we were thinking. We're trying to one-up each other with busyness. That is not okay. Busy should not be a status symbol. And then another rhythmic hindrance, one that we're not always consciously aware of, is that the busy rush often is a way to escape pain. Avoidance can be a coping skill unconsciously, because when we stop, we know we have to think about that difficult conversation. When we stop, those feelings from the past kind of try to creep in because you've escaped the bear. When you stop, your body thinks, uh-oh, the bear's gone, but now we've got a lot of processing to do. And that is okay. It just feels unsafe. And so we don't normalize that, so people don't engage in it. But much of our busyness is a trauma response. We are living in the fight or flight response as a way to escape the pain. So for today, my hope was to explain God's desire for rhythm, to explain some of the problems and the culprits that are causing us to lose our rhythm in the first place. And then I'm hopefully going to leave you with some skills to start finding that rhythm. And it will be life-changing. But I need a little disclaimer first. The pursuit of rhythm when you've been out of sync can be hard. When that slinky finally stops bumping along, the shame voice will show up. It'll perceive initially that something's wrong. Sometimes people have what I call an emotional flu. Because you're finally safe, because you finally stop running, your body will want to process emotions that have been unprocessed. This is not bad. It is not wrong. It is quite normal, but I want to acknowledge it can be painful. Nobody wants the flu. Nobody wants to have to process deep moments of pain. However, I really believe that when we go through the valley of the shadow of death, going through it, if we allow ourselves to go there safely, we do come out the other side. Some of us, we've just gotten stuck. We've gotten stuck in that valley and we're running around in it. But Psalm 23 says, He makes me lie down and He restores my soul. We're going to rest so that we can be restored. So we're going to learn to cultivate some ways to rest. We are going to escape the hurry to find fullness. Because as Christians, we can't just take care of our spirit. We also have to take care of our soul and our flesh. We have to take care of our temple. It's holy to God. He loves it. And the priests were there to minister to the temple. And we are priests. We are kings and priests in God's kingdom. And we are meant to take care of the temple. We are meant to take care of our soul. And ultimately, that helps our spirit because they're connected. We are triune, just like God is. We are three and we are one. And each part impacts the other parts. There is going to be a part 2 to this where I'm going to go and do a deeper dive into some skills. But the biggest and most foundational skill that I can give you to find rhythms of rest is going to be cultivating a schedule that allows rest. And that might be scary. It might seem hard to do. I once did full-time school and full-time work and had a family. Like, I know busy. I get it. I empathize with you. And I'm sure some of you might even be far busier than I am. So please, all the grace in the world, I ask that you hear this with an open heart and we'll figure this out together. Start small. Start really, really small. I have known people that took 2 minutes a day to rest. In their workday, they set an alarm and they paused for 2 minutes and they let their body and their soul catch up. And that took away their anxiety. That won't be the case for everyone, but I would almost guarantee it would help. It's going to put you on this journey of finding that rhythm. And rhythm is inherently healing. It can help anxiety. It can help depression. And it can help a weary, burnt out soul. So taking a 2-minute rest break, whether it's from work, from family, if you're a parent, maybe it's in the bathroom with your little children putting their fingers under the door. I've heard it all, believe me. Somewhere, a safe place where you can stop, you can put down all the distractions, put your hand on your heart, and just breathe. Just notice what you are physically feeling in your body. We start with the physical first because the alarm wants to be quieter. So we want to listen to the alarm, give it space. When we listen to the smoke detector, it automatically gets a little quieter. I might notice tension in my chest. I might notice a funny feeling in my belly. Oh, maybe I notice that my jaw has been really tight. Oh yeah, maybe I've got a little bit of a headache. We're just going to breathe through it, because when we breathe, we activate our parachute, our parasympathetic response. And then we might notice what we're feeling emotionally. Yeah, I do feel hurried. I feel agitated. I feel a little worried, actually. Because when we pause, we notice other things we're feeling. I feel a little worried about that meeting later today. I'm a little worried about my child. I'm a little worried about that conversation. Or I'm a little sad, or I'm a little lonely. There's no right or wrong. Just notice. Don't will it away. Don't psychoanalyze it. You don't even need to know why you're feeling what you feel. You're just holding space. You're just noticing. And then you might notice what you're thinking about. You don't have to do that last step, but it can be helpful sometimes. Sometimes we have stinking thinking, and when we bring it to our awareness, it helps us rewire that thinking to better thinking, healthier thinking, kinder thinking. And that didn't take very long. I just did it right now. And that can calm an agitated nervous system. Doing something like that literally starts to send the message to the brain and the nervous system, oh, it's okay. We can enter the parasympathetic again. Even if I'm busy, I can do it from a more parasympathetic state. And it's like giving your soul a little mini break, a little mini vacation. So the 2-minute rest break is one way to start cultivating healthy rhythm. Another way to cultivate healthy rhythm is to try and look at your calendar and be a little more intentional. When you have a busy day, let's say your work day requires that you work 12 hours one day. Is it possible that you work a shorter day the next day? I know so many people that never take their loo time. They never flex their day. Maybe you can't, but if you can, is that an opportunity? So when you know there's going to be a busy day, have a quieter day. I did that recently. I did a workshop on the weekend, and months in advance, I planned to take the Monday off because I knew I would need it. That is me building in my rhythms, and I am so glad that I did, because my soul had some catching up to do. My body had some rest that it needed. Another way to build in rhythm, if possible, is look at your schedule and try to build in more intentional days off. Can you take Friday afternoons off once in a while? Can you take vacations more rhythmically, more scattered out throughout the year, and not just save it all at once? We think that's good, but that's the urgent push collapse dynamic. Some people save all their vacation and wait till they retire. I do not recommend that. If you've known anyone who got really ill after they retired, this can be a factor. A nervous system that is constantly in fight or flight is inflamed. It leads to inflammation in the body and makes us more susceptible to disease. We are doing ourselves a favor when we build in more regular rest. Take your breaks. I was a culprit. I used to work through my lunch. Don't recommend it. In fact, we've done so much research that we know that the person who takes their breaks, who rests, and actually works a 4-day week as opposed to a 5 is more efficient. When we rest, we are efficient. Take your breaks, take your lunch, leave on time, try not to go in too early. Believe me, God loves our diligence and our work ethic, but he also loves rest. Jesus modeled it. When he was busy with the crowds, you will often see rhythmically he had a bit of quietness, alone time with God, or a nap in the middle of a storm, something to counterbalance the season he was in. It's helpful for our bodies when we can anticipate rest, and we can only anticipate it when we build it in regularly. Creating new rhythms can also be helpful when we leverage existing rhythms. Do you have a coffee or a cup of tea every morning before work? Is it possible we could leverage that moment and take a 2-minute pause? That's going to increase the likelihood of success. If we can leverage something we're already doing and adding a new skill, it might build into our routine a little more seamlessly. So I've talked about a lot today. God's design and heart for rhythm. What is rhythm? Why we've lost it, some hindrances we have, and then some possible ways to start cultivating rhythms of rest. There's going to be some questions and follow-up to this, and let me please invite you, coming out of today, to simply reflect on your life, to reflect on the state of your rhythms, to reflect on those signs and symptoms that I shared. Just do a little self-check-in. Where am I at? Is this something where I need to create some healthy change? And please, if life is very burdensome right now, have grace for yourself. We all need to start small. Let us not despise the day of small beginnings. Any change can be meaningful, even if it's just that 2-minute pause. I bless you. I hope this was helpful, and maybe we'll see you again soon in part 2.